Welcome to this week's episode of Hollywood Heat. Malik is not here with us again. It's just Cam and I.
Yeah, Malik looks a little different this week.
Malik does look a little different. Special guest. And I appreciate my guy, Jay Richardson, too, for hooking this up and, getting me connected with our guest, Glenn Stanton. Glenn, how are you?
I'm great. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem. So we wanted to start this off by, we've been talking about scary movies the last couple episodes. And so you were in The Walking Dead. So the latest season, correct? Season 11?
Yeah, playing Frost.
Okay. So what was that experience like? How was that for you?
It was pretty incredible. It was a very different experience. I mean, I've done about a dozen television shows at this point, a few different movies, and I've played bigger roles on a lot of different shows. Yeah. But I've never been on something that was this big. So it was like outside of just the incredible experience of like filming something that was, has been going for 11 years, the incredible outpour of like love and support from the fans was just really overwhelming. So it was really a really like, kind of milestone moment, I feel like, in my career.
For sure. How was that experience kind of walking into a room where everything was kind of already established? You know what I mean? Like you were coming in with the people who had been there together for X amount of time and a show that had been running for X amount of time. I mean, it's awesome to hear that the fans are so supportive after so many seasons of a show, but like, how was that experience for you? I'm sure it was very different.
Yeah, anytime you step onto an established show as a guest star, you're always the new kid in school, and from set to set that can really vary. And I think that was like the one thing I was nervous about coming in is I was like, these guys two or whatever, and so they have this rapport, and you just don't know if with all of that fandom too, like some people develop weird personality traits and can be quirky. And so I was just trying to be like braced for anything, but I got there. And the thing that really surprised me was just how warm that set was. I mean, from your number one on the call sheet all the way down, because that's a lot of times what sets the tempo is that number one, number two on the call sheet, whatever their energy is, it really kind of has a trickle down effect. And from top to bottom, it felt very familial. It was very warm and inviting. I quickly became like Lauren Cohan. I love her to death, who plays Maggie. Like she was the person that I probably ended up talking to the most and the soonest, and she just really kind of like welcomed me in and put her arm around me on the show. So like it was really cool, like coming in kind of bracing for whatever, and then to just get there and for it to be so relaxed and so inviting. That was a really good part.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet. I was curious too, because oftentimes when I talk to people who have like played sports at some point in their life and then they go do something else later, they'll talk about how sports was kind of like an influence on what they do. How does that carry over to acting? Because you were a football player before you kind of got into acting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I talk about this a lot with like Jay and I have talked about this a lot. And like anytime I'm talking to young actors that are like coming out of sports, because there is a really good amount of crossover of people that have sports backgrounds that are getting into into acting. And I know for me, especially because I mean, I was in high school, I was a lineman, and in college, I moved out to, play linebacker, put my hand in the dirt some as well. Yeah. So I was never like the star quarterback. I was never the guy that was the big billboard kind of individual. And so I know for me, it was even easier because, when you're not that star skilled player, you are like, I'm going to play my role. I need to play my role. I need to execute it. Trust that everybody else is going to play theirs so that we can all like get to our ultimate goal. And when you come into, I think, this business, that gives you a longevity, because this business is only part talent. It's like, the NFL, like the NBA, talent can only get you so far, right? But can you be coachable? Can you fit in a locker room? All of those same things really translate into acting. I mean, can you walk on the set and make it not be just about you? Because the best actors, when you're in a scene, the best actors make that scene about the person that they're in the scene with. And they're not like, okay, yeah, you're talking, my line. You know, like you've got those people.
Yeah.
But I think when you come into it with that, like making what can I do to serve my scene partner, in the same thing of like, if you're on a line, if you like, what can I do? If you know your guy's got a bad left arm or something, what can I do to help on that, you know, that double team block? All of those things, it really does help you to step into this. And I think also most of the people that I knew that did not play sports, that really just went into acting, especially when I got to college, they were all the star of their high school shows and everything, right?
Yeah.
Then you get into the real world, and people aren't so nice when you get into that professional business and you're starting out. They don't have time to stop and hold your hand and be kind and all of this. It's like, we got time is money.
Right.
So I think when you're coming out of sports, you hear a lot of things from those coaches. You get some thick skin real fast.
I believe it.
So it prepares you, I think, for like the tough parts, the harsh nature that can be, you know, beginning your acting career, and some of those quiet moments, those lulls that you get into.
Right.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah. Yeah. So you grew up in Ohio. Yes. Have you lived there most of your life, most of your childhood life? And then
mostly, yeah. Like my father was in the military, and I lived with him for a few years. So like I was like in Northern California for a couple years, and Texas for a couple years, but predominantly it was Ohio growing up.
Okay. Yeah. I'm curious because I have lived in Ohio also, and I went to Ohio State, and I completed a theater minor there. And so I know how it is just kind of doing acting in Ohio. So you moved to Chicago first. Was that pretty quickly after graduation, or when did you kind of decide that this was the path you wanted to go on, and how did you go about that?
You know, the whole path has actually been kind of wild, because what it was that I was going to study, and then through a really weird series of events ended up auditioning for the musical theater program, and they turned around, they're like, we will give you a large scholarship to do this as well. And I was like,
hey,
I mean,
wow.
Okay,
right,
sure, whatever. I'll do that. Well, I can sing and dance my way through college, like when I'm not playing football. All right.
Yeah.
And then I got bit by the bug, and I really found so much of my passion outlet being associated with the arts. And so it was really going into my senior year that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to really, truly take this seriously as a career choice. And I ended up, as soon as I graduated, like literally, I got my degree, and like early the next morning, I'm driving to this tiny town in Tennessee to my first like professional theater gig.
Wow.
I did that for about 7-8 months. Came back to Ohio to catch my breath from living in small town Tennessee for that long. And then immediately moved to Chicago about 2 months after that. And just kind of jumped in. And that's what started it. And it was started when I first started, it was really planning. I didn't think about film and television, really. Like, I was a theater nerd. And so that's where my space was. That's what I was focused on. And really television sort of like came to Chicago and found me really before I found it. And, you know, and decided to really, once I started to find my comfort zone and the things that I loved about the difference between acting on stage, acting on camera, and on top of that, the financial difference between the two.
Right.
I started to switch my focus, and eventually it brought me out here to LA.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That is, man, Tennessee to shit. Wow. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, Tennessee.
It's like, man, that is nuts. I've only driven through Tennessee.
Yeah.
So one of the things I thought was kind of cool that Cam and my other friend Malik told me about was like, and I never thought about, was like different types of zombies in like movies and stuff. Yeah.
Cantley said 1-track mind. I'm thinking about zombies, baby.
I was like, zombies are zombies. And I started watching like, you know, Army of the Dead over the summer, 28 weeks later, all these things, Walking Dead. So like, what kind of, okay, so like, are you like, what's your favorite type of zombie? Like, is it the ones that you like are in the show with you, or in a movie you like? Like, what are your favorite types of zombies?
I think the ones that I found the most terrifying was actually watching World War Z.
Oh yeah, that's like, a good one.
like watching World War Z, it was such a I think the biggest difference from that and a lot of the zombie films that we see is not only do they sprint, like, which is terrifying,
Thank
and
you.
seem to like
Thank you.
and on top of that, they seem to strategize, like they're like using themselves as like things to get higher and climb. Like, that's terrifying. They have a consciousness and they are like sprinting, and that's terrifying. But I think the thing that threw me so much, I didn't realize until the end of the film, watching World War Z in the theater, was I was like, there was zero gore and almost no blood in that movie, which I had just never seen a zombie anything be successful in translating like the terror and the heightened sense of just tension and suspense without the usage of like blood and gore, because that's always been a big part of like zombie, like the zombie culture and the zombie fandom is like, all right, let's get gross. It's Halloween. But that was the thing that really threw me, is I was like, it's not that I'm scared of like that person getting eaten. I was like, I have no idea where these things are coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that still blows my mind that there's so many different types. And I like try to pay attention to it now. So thank you guys for doing that for me.
Hey, you brought up some great points. And I actually have a question. So were you a big Walking Dead fan before? I don't know if this will get you in trouble answering this question. If you were a big fan before you got booked on the show, and if so, like, how was the expectation versus reality of that?
I was a really big fan of the show, and I think I was watching for about 5 seasons before, and that was around the time I moved out to LA, and I was just like starting into the work grind and like trying to figure out the market. So there were a lot of things that just sort of fell by the wayside, but like I was a big fan, especially I felt like the first 2 seasons of that show completely reinvented like the way that zombie films and zombie shows were approached. The zombies are not the most dangerous things. Like, they're not the scariest things. It's the human beings that are still humans that have lost their humanity and are so manipulative, because it's like a zombie, you see it coming, it's walking, it can't like sprint at you, and there are no ulterior motives. You know what its goals are, you know what its agenda is. But anytime you see like 3 people out there, like, I got nothing. It
gets real.
I have no idea. This is always a possible threat. And I think that was the coolest thing to me about the show, is the exploration of like the depravity of man is the thing I love the most.
100%.
That's crazy. I only have one more question for you. So we're talking top 5 scary movies all time. We tried to make a list last week.
Oh, it's so hard.
It was so tough. We had like 4 or 5 regions, and only like 4 per like region. And it was just like, okay, we left like 100 movies off of each one. So what would be your top 5?
I gotta say this one just because it so traumatized me as a child. But the first Child's Play movie has got to be on there. I on purpose. My father accidentally let me see it, not knowing, thinking I was still up in my room when I was really sitting like on the stairs, looking through the banisters, watching it. And I think it was when Chucky killed the kid's dad. That like, I was out, man. I was like, adults can get killed. Like, that's his dad, man. And I screamed, and my dad like realizes that I've been sitting here for however long watching this like tear. And I had I'm old enough to have had a My Little Buddy doll. And I went back home to my mom's, and I was terrified of even going in the same room as that My Little Buddy doll. I ended up burying him under our woodshed.
That's a core memory. That one is on there. That deep.
One, that one is definitely on the list. And you know, this is like a recent one, and I've said this before, like, it's kind of recency bias, but like, there was something about the first Purge movie, and I think it was because watching it, I was like, I can see this happen. Like the social commentary on top of the horror element was something that kind of had me shook. So those are 2 that like are sort of in my list of like the horror hall of fames, just like in my personal list for sure.
Do you have any more at all, or are those? This was tough.
Are you more
It
of like
is because
a,
it's like they all start to. Freddy Krueger messed me up as a kid too. Like that one, that was
Yeah.
another one I saw at a friend's house, and I was like, man, I can't even go to sleep now. Like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You got to stay awake.
yeah.
my dreams were supposed to be my escape. So yeah, no, that one definitely had me. But yeah, like then after that, it's like everything starts like wrestling. I mean, 28 days later, it's
Yeah.
hard not to put
Yeah.
that one on there
That's a
too.
good one.
Especially talking in the zombie genre.
Right.
And I will share this, like speaking of like being scared and the zombie thing, a little story from the show.
Yeah.
I remember my first day on set, not on set, but my first day working with the zombie horde. It was in, I believe, the end of episode 1 of this season when we're in the train tunnels and everything. And first of all, they built these train tunnels in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of like the woods in Georgia in like this huge hangar barn.
Oh, wow.
They built this massive 2-tunnel stretch of train with a platform and all that in there. It was unbelievable. The
Wow.
artists that work on this show
That's
that
crazy.
make the show come to life and pop
Yeah.
are unbelievable and second to none. So as we're getting to step on that, I'm like, man, I'm standing in this and I still can't tell that it's a fake train tunnel.
Oh yeah.
And
Wow.
they've got it lit to the where like the train is behind us, and then when we look down the tracks, it's just dark. It's just pitch black. And we're working on the scene, and they're like, okay, well, here it comes, we're all fighting to get on the train, and then we're going to make this sound cue, and you guys are going to turn, and the horde is going to be coming.
Oh.
And I'm standing on this train track, and I look down there at the sound cue, and I can't see anything, but I hear feet dragging.
Oh.
And I hear the,
Oh.
like all of them are making the noises, but you can't see anything. And then slowly, like there's this light spill that's just right there, and out of the shadow pops one face, then another face, and then another, and it's just layer on layer of like, you got like 50, 60 zombie extras that are all just like walking in. And I was standing there and I'm like, I know this is all fake. I know that I am an actor on a television show, but my heart is racing, and all the back of my neck is stood up, and I'm having to remind myself not to like actually swing these machetes around, because like I felt my adrenaline starting to rush. It was surprising just how real that felt. I did not have to act very much at all.
I'm always curious, especially with scary stuff, how much of it is actually done almost with the intent of making you guys freaked out, and how much of it is you guys have to pretend like this is happening, but there's actually nothing happening and you just have to be scared anyways.
Right.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
that'd be intense.
There's a mixed bag. Like I haven't done a lot of like green screen stuff, but typically like with the greens, and that to me, that's almost like acting on stage. Like that almost feels like theater, like all the imagination you have to use. All right, and here comes a dragon. And it's somebody with like a broomstick with like a green ball on the end of it. And you're like, oh yeah, that's a dragon. I'm terrified. But the great thing on The Walking Dead is it is like that makeup, even right up close, is so fantastic. Like I mean, my last episode, like I think I spent probably 2 hours in the makeup chair getting like because I got, beaten and all of that stuff.
Bloodied.
So like the amount of like they pour so many of their resources into their makeup special effects team, which is nobody is topping those guys. They're incredible.
Wow.
But yeah, no, it makes our job easier, and stepping on set and just seeing that. Now when everything breaks and like they're resetting, like they're setting everything up again, and they're like, all right, all the actors go to holding, and then you step outside and then you see like 50 zombies holding a KN95 mask over themselves because they can't put it on their ears, or their ears will fall off, and they're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram on their phone. Like, then you're like, oh yeah, that's weird, man.
Yeah.
I remember probably like 2 years ago, I went to a haunted house for trick or treat, and we literally could like just not find a way out. Like we were done with the house, and so we saw a guy who was like one of the characters in the house, and we were like, how do we get out of here? And he's like, oh man, you just go out here and make a left and just go. And I was like, you're literally one of the characters in the house, and you're telling us how to get out of here. So
Tommy said, oh yeah, man, no problem. This way.
Yeah, he's like, just go out here and make a left. I'm like, oh shit.
I will say, like, one thing I am incapable of doing, and this has literally been since I was a teenager, I can't go into haunted houses.
Really?
I can't. And the reason is because when it comes to fight or flight, I am like swing first, ask questions later. So if it triggers my adrenaline and I can't catch myself, I almost got thrown out of. I remember I was 17 and we went to Kings Island for like their Fright Fest or whatever.
Oh, Fear Fest.
Or Fear Fest,
yeah.
And I'll never forget. I almost got thrown out because I almost ended a dude's life. Like I was, and it was in the middle of like I'm being cool, right? Like there's this girl that I'm trying to work my game, talking to this girl. So I'm trying to be on my best behavior and be in the pocket, in the zone. And as I'm talking to her, I just see out of the corner of my eye this dude over here. I'm like, this dude ain't walking right. Like this. And then so immediately there's like my spidey sense starts tingling. I'm like, there's something about this dude. He's not walking right. Yeah. And he starts to get closer. And then suddenly he takes 2 real quick steps and then hits and then slides like on he's got these knee pads.
Yeah.
So he shoots sparks out the side. He's got like some fake knife. And I pulled back and went to throw, and like somebody grabbed his shoulder and pulled him out of the way, or I'd have taken his head right off. It was my only instinct.
Yeah.
And I pulled my fist down and I just went, oh, somebody took your life just now. Oh. And then, my macking moment was over. It was like,
your game is ruined.
Had to recover. It took some time. It was, So I've learned I can't. It'll be a lawsuit if I end up in one of these haunted
at least
houses and lose myself.
Yes, at least you know. Oh my gosh. Well, Cam, do you have any more questions for Glenn or anything? Or
is what do you got going on now? This is like an episode of Hot Wings. Tell yourself. Yeah.
Right now it's like we're like just getting the industry starting to open up again. I shot a couple of short films that I'm really proud of that should be coming out later this year. One of them's been announced called After a Love Story, which was like a really emotional, really impactful story about like a couple that is trying to overcome a trauma that they went through together, and they're trying to find each other on the other side of it. So that one is coming out towards the end of this year. And then outside of that, like right now, like with Delta and everything, like the industry just kind of went back to darn near nothing, and we're just starting to open up again. So up for a few things, fingers crossed.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good luck with it.
The life of an actor is it's like in the NFL with like the guys that are always on the 1-year deals.
Yeah.
You're always you're always playing for that next contract. It's always a contract year, like every couple months.
I hear that. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, we thought you would be an appropriate guest for, Halloween and everything scary going on. So we appreciate you taking time to do it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's been fun.
And tell people where they can find you on like social media and all that stuff.
You can find me on Instagram at Glenn Stanton Drama, and also on Twitter at Glenn Stanton Act. And it's Glenn with 2 N's. So
all right. We appreciate you taking it. And we're gonna keep having the poll up for all the Halloween movies and stuff for people to vote on. So we'll keep you in the loop with what goes on with that and everything.
Great, please do.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you, Glenn, again for joining us, and we will see you guys next week on Hollywood Heat.